right, so I think we're live here. At least I hope we are. Every time I hit the start button on Zoom, I'm always like, I hope this is working. But regardless, we're recording this. So for people that can't attend, they will see this. All right, well, everyone that's joined us, thank you so much. I'm Keith Klein. I'm the founder of VentureFizz, and I am super excited today to host our first event that's centered around our new offering on VentureFizz that's called VentureFizz Communities. My goal is to bring together people in different job functions so that they can network, they can grow their careers, they can share knowledge, they can have access to high quality events like this, and then access to resources to help them do their job more effectively. So we launched our first offering, that being the product management community. So we launched that last Monday. It's been a great success. We've had amazing product managers from the Boston tech scene joining this community. So I'm super excited about it. So if you are a product manager in the Boston tech scene, you need to request an invite so you can have access to this community. So simply go to venturefizz.com/communities and you'll see all the details there. Today we have Boston tech legend and serial entrepreneur Paul English joining us, which to kick off this event series, I couldn't think of a better guest. I've been fortunate to speak to Paul a couple times for my podcast and other things we've done together, and his story is obviously amazing. So we're going to talk so much about building great products that have scaled to massive outcomes in terms of exits and all that great stuff. So one quick side note, or two quick side notes. One, we already have our next event planned. It's scheduled for June 11th. We have Matt Kaplan, who is a senior VP and chief product officer. He led product at Toast, Acquia, and LogMeIn. So these are companies that have obviously scaled as well. So I'm super excited about that. So more details to follow. And second, just kind of like a housekeeping note here for this particular event. If you have questions as we're talking, put them in the Q&A section, not the chat function. I'm going to be monitoring it and I might weave those questions in. So instead of waiting till the end, let's just handle the questions during the flow of the conversation. So, all right, Paul, thanks so much for joining us here.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you, Keith. I've always enjoyed your contributions to the Boston tech scene, so it's great to be partnering with you on this new initiative.
I'm so excited. It's going really well. So, all right, let's kick things off. So you have ideas, and I say ideas because that's just we've talked. You have notebooks of ideas. So I think one of the things that people think about is like, how do you actually like narrow things down of like, okay, this is a legit project that I'm actually going to take on and build a company around.
Yeah, I own hundreds of domain names, and every domain name has an idea associated with it. I'm obsessed with brand. One part of brand is name. There's a lot else for brand other than just a name, but I'm obsessed with names. And so when I come up with an idea, I'll go and try to find a really great domain name, and I'm prepared to spend money to get a really good name. And then I'll write up a plan and I'll send the plan out to sort of my most trusted advisors. And the first litmus test to me about whether the idea is worth pursuing is, can you find trusted advisors who are accomplished people from your past who like the idea so much that they start working on it with you even before this discussion of compensation of role. They just like love the idea. They love working with you and they start contributing. They write Google documents, they write emails, they do research. If you can't get people to, on their own, start helping you on the idea, there's one of two problems. Either the idea is really not that great, it might be good for you, but it's not really a mass market idea, or you're not compelling enough as a storyteller. And that's something that we can all get better at. I give myself maybe a 7 out of 10 on a good day. I give myself an 8 out of 10 as a storyteller. We can all get better. And it's something that I observe people who are good storytellers try to learn better at that. And I think storytelling is really important for selling people in a product vision, getting your engineers aligned, get them to want to build it, to work hard. There's a lot of tricks with, as product managers, we manage diverse teams of engineers, designers, QA, et cetera, et cetera. And part of our role as product managers to get them excited, to lead that team.
Yeah, and you're always experimenting, like even when you are kind of like you're focused on building a product or a company around a product, you always have these other things that are experiments, it seems like too, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely very ADD, which means I like shiny new objects and I like new things. I like new ideas. I like ideating. I like hanging out with people who like to ideate. And so I'm always trying new things, and I'm always willing to hear new ideas. Um, but you also don't want to lose focus of the main project you're working on. And most products are successful not to a list of 10 features. It's usually one feature that's the thing that makes them special. And so I think as product leaders, we need to have the discipline for testing these experiments, seeing what resonates. And then when you figure out what's working well, just to double down on that feature and crush it, make it simpler, make it faster, make it more obvious. It's okay to have experiments on the side, but don't mistake those experiments for kind of the bread and butter of the main product you're working on.
No, we have some great questions already. So, like you've had many experiences where you've found advisors, like trusted advisors, but like what advice would you give to people that are trying to build that core network of advisors and how, like that you can have that level of trust with them?
It can start really small. It can start with one person. You think about who's the best person you work with at your last job or your current job, someone that is good to bounce ideas off of, someone who likes to ideate and they like brainstorm with ideas with you. Pitch new ideas to that one person. Ideally, it becomes two people and then three people. I have for my little venture studio, BVS, Boston Venture Studio, the website is bvs.net. I have about a dozen advisors that are, I have my full-time team, which is about half a dozen people, mostly in Boston. Plus, I have a couple people in New York, and then about 40 engineers at offshore for a company I've worked with for 15 years. But in addition to that, as sort of the core team, I have these dozen other advisors and the people I've just sort of collected over the years and that I want to still have a relationship with. And so I'll add them as an advisor. I'll send email to my advisors about once every few weeks with an update on what we're working on to try to get their feedback and to see which of these projects they want to jump in and, join a team or invest or become an advisor or board member. But I would collect these advisors over your career. They can be really important.
Yeah, and it's important for just building your career in general too, or if you're building a company. I have my network advisors, and they are so valuable. Okay, well, you've serial entrepreneur, multiple companies. We're not going to go through all of them, but I mean, because there's so many fun stories along the way. But I did have Paul on the podcast a long time ago. So if you go to venturefizz.com/podcast, you'll see the whole library of podcast episodes there, and just type in Paul, and it'll come up. And it's just awesome story. But let's talk about Kayak, because that's obviously one of these companies that had tremendous scale when public was acquired. How did the idea come to fruition?
So Kayak was a company that the original idea came from my co-founder, Steve Hafner. Steve was one of the founders of Orbitz, and he ran biz dev and marketing for them. And Orbitz was very successful. It started as a partnership between a bunch of the airlines who wanted to have their own website. But the thing that disappointed Steve was 70% of the people came to Orbitz, they found a flight they wanted, they then left Orbitz, went directly to an airline to buy it there. And so Steve was like, I'm paying all this money to buy traffic, and 70% of my traffic goes away, and I don't make any money on them. So Steve basically said, what if I created a search engine where there was no ability to buy anything, but we sent you directly to, JetBlue or whatever airline. So it's like search with us, book with them. And that was the original idea, and we just kind of went from there. And I was there for 10 years. We started in January 04, took it public in 2012, sold it in 2013. And I think I stayed till the end of 2013. And it's an incredibly fun ride. I'll say one thing, I know we're talking to product leaders now on this Zoom call. One thing unusual about Kayak was, I think for the first 5 years, I could be wrong, I didn't have any product managers. So like I wrote most of the specs. My title was CTO. I had three designers that I hired that reported directly to me. And I sat next to Jeff Rago, who's a lead UI engineer, and my three designers. And we kind of wrote the specs. And some of our specs were design documents today. They'd be in Figma. Back then they were, believe it or not, in Photoshop. Um, but I did all the customer support myself for the first year. And then I actually have a patent on doing customer support by email in a particular way. And we ended up making the engineers do all the support, which is a really important product management trick, because engineers don't like being interrupted and they like just playing with their code. And if you make them answer a couple support calls a day, they'll be annoyed. But particularly if they get a call about something, there's a bug in the software, the engineer will say, I never want to get that call again. I'm going to stop whatever I'm doing and fix that bug so no one else ever gets confused by that again. So I think that was one of the secrets of Kayak, is because the engineers had to do all the customer support, they fixed all the bugs before writing more code. And the product ended up working pretty well because of that, because we fixed all the bugs.
And was the initial version like 1.0 of the product what eventually became Kayak? Was that, I
The
mean, there was a
original version was
vision.
we incorporated Kayak in January 2004. The very first public product was in Cinco de Mayo 2004, so May 5th. Um, and it was terrible. We wrote it in Macromedia Flash, which was horrible. It had a lot of performance issues and was just a pig with the browser. We ended up rewriting it in JavaScript, and we kind of co-invented Ajax, which is how to use JavaScript to do a lot of processing client side without going back and forth between the client and the server. It's now sort of standard fare, but back then in '04, we had to invent all those libraries on our own. And that first version, it was terrible, but we iterated really, really rapidly. And I personally talked to customers every day. Like, it wouldn't be unusual for me to take 10 calls a day. The other thing we did at Kayak was I had a phone on my desk. We had an open office, and I sat in the center of the office, kind of the center. And I had a phone, a big red phone, looked like a bat phone, with a direct dial analog number. There was no IVR phone switch. And we put that phone number on Kayak's help page. And we had a control, like a dial it up or down, but what percent of time I wanted to show up on that page. But I would take phone calls during the day. And it really tuned me to, are we solving problems for the customer? Like, what does the customer want? Not what do we want, but what does the customer want? What are they looking for? What are they thinking about when they first go to kayak.com? And because I talk to customers every day, I just became incredibly, incredibly laser focused on fixing that experience for them.
And, like, how did you manage your time? So, as you mentioned, you didn't have a staff of product managers. A lot of the startups that I've dealt with in the past, the founder is, leading product because they have the vision and they're, working with the engineering team to execute on it. But they eventually do hand the baton off to maybe a first product hire, director of product, someone that's kind of a experienced leader, yet not, still an individual contributor. So how are you able to juggle all that of talking to customers and, understanding what the
I
product
mean,
was going to look like?
another big thing is I probably spent 25% of my time recruiting. Um, we worked with recruiters. I like good recruiters, and rec some good recruiters helped build Kayak for us. But I was always interviewing talent. My time was largely recruiting, managing the designers, focus on website performance, and doing customer support. Those are kind of the main four things that I worked on. I worked on other things as well. I was very involved in the marketing, the brand development, some biz dev, involved in fundraising. But those were really my four core areas: is recruiting, design, customer support, and performance.
And how did you get customers, right? Like, how did you get consumers to understand that Kayak was this new, like,
So
vertical search engines weren't really a thing yet?
yeah, initially we lost a lot of money because we'd buy ads on Google, like we buy an ad for cheap flights. We would spend on average $1 to get someone to come to our website, and we made on average 20 cents. So do the math, we lost a lot of money very quickly. The reason we were buying traffic, and I recommend that everyone buys traffic as a new company, is you have to do something to get them in the door. The thing that'll make you a successful company, what worked for Kayak, is because our first product was terrible, but we released new software almost every day, and we talked to customers every day. We took all their emails, we took their phone calls, and we just kept fixing it and fixing it and fixing it and fixing it. And finally, our customers had such a good experience, they came back again. They didn't need to go to Google. They'd remember to go directly to Kayak, and they'd tell their friends about it. I remember the time of our IPO in 2012. I have a bunch of numbers burned into my head from doing the roadshow presentation 100 times. But one of my favorite stats was 70% of our traffic was self-directed, where people go directly to kayak.com. They didn't find us or another site. And that allowed us to be an extremely profitable company.
Because I think I saw like your numbers as far as revenue per employee was extraordinary.
Yeah, we had at the IPO, we had 200 employees and 300 million in revenue. And a
Wow.
million and a half per employee was not only higher than anyone had done at travel at the time, it was higher than Facebook and Google. So yeah, we were really into performance of the website and performance of the team. Performance of the team to get revenue per employee, if that's like one of the metrics you care about, you care. It really involves like how you hire, how decisions are made, how you run meetings, how you prep the meetings, what happens during the meeting, what happens after the meeting. It's all around decision making and speed and pushing down authority. If you do those things really, really well, um, while the product leader, because has their finger on everything. But if you do those other things really well, it allows you to operate really rapidly with a pretty small team. I actually have, so Keith, you might know one of my companies is gethuman.com. We've
Hmm.
served customer service information to 200 million people at this point. It's a two-person company.
Hmm.
And now at my venture studio, BVS, we have 5 companies under development. Two of them I love because they have 2 programmers each, and both of them have a positive K factor. So there's some viral growth. It's like both these products grow on their own. And my latest number that I'm intellectually interested in is millions of users per programmer, where I love AI. I love AI helping us build products, helping us market, write marketing, reach people, design graphics, design copy, write code. And I'm just really intellectually fascinated by, can you run a product team that's really small, but somehow achieves a positive K factor, like positive growth?
And like one of the things that I think sometimes product managers struggle with is you have a founder that has a vision and maybe visions of other things, new product lines or new offerings. And so how do you stay focused? Like one of the things that it was a fun story that I've learned from you in the past is you actually had an idea for an early Uber where you pitched it to Boston Coach, where on Kayak it could have been like an Uber button of here's your taxi or black car.
Yeah, we actually designed it. I went in and I met with, see if I can remember, the CEO of Boston Coach at the time. I think his name was Larry Moulter. And I went in and pitched him. I said, we're this travel company, Kayak. We have millions of users. I want to put in a button to say get a car. And they had, I don't know, hundreds of their own cars, but they also ran distribution for other car services like them across the country. So I thought that'd be a good partner. He thought it was intriguing, but he said, "Can you do you want to come back and meet my executive team and you can present them?" So I went back to the office. We did a design. I wrote a PowerPoint. I came up with a dozen slides. Went back, met with the executive team, pitched the whole design, the whole product, and they like laughed me out of the room. They said,
Mhm.
"No one's going to do this." And I went back to my co-founder, Steve, and I said, "I still think there's something here." This is like 2009, like when the iPhone, our first iPhone product was out there. And Steve is a very smart guy and he's very good at focus. Steve basically said, "This sounds like a huge distraction. Let's nail flights first, and we'll think about cars someday down the road." And if I had convinced Steve to let us build it, I might have screwed up Kayak because I might have been too focused on cars, but who knows? Anyway, I'm pretty happy with the product that, as it ended out. I still use Kayak to this day, and I'm still pretty loyal to the team there.
Yeah. All right. So what were the biggest takeaways for, the product management audience that we have here from building Kayak?
I would say talk to customers every day. As a product leader, do primary research yourself. Don't delegate it. Don't hire consultants. Don't hire employees to do it. Don't hire interns to do it. Do it yourself. I was a CTO and co-founder, and I talked to customers every day on the phone, and I did lots of emails every day. I also used to, back then, I had 2 phones, and for the following reason. I would buy the cheapest flight I could flying out of Boston. Typically, it was the New York shuttle. I think it was like under $100. I would buy that ticket not because I wanted to fly that day, but really just to go through security so I could sit at different gates. And I'd approach people and I'd say, "Hey, I'm a programmer and I'm working in this company, Kayak. How did you buy your ticket today? Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions and I want to show you my product?" I would hand them one of my phones. And with the other phone, I would say, "Do you mind if I actually record this? Like, what your reactions to the product?" I'd record it, and then I would email the video back to the engineers so that even if they weren't talking about something, they could see viscerally how they responded to that product. So I just think doing the primary research yourself, make it a regular thing. I like the idea of having the product leaders be the number one customer support person, and make your engineers do support as well.
Now, do you have like your own philosophy, methodology, approach when it comes to that customer discovery conversation? Like what are your must get, what do you aim to get out of that conversation as like the core foundation?
If you study usability testing, you learn how not to lead the witness. It's easy to lead the witness if you ask questions a certain way. And the most important question in formal usability testing and market research is, what are you thinking? And you have that, don't let them give you unstructured feedback. Don't say, answer these 12 questions, but just say, what do you think of when you see this screen? Like, why are you pausing? Like, what are you thinking about? What are you looking for? And don't tell them, click this button and that button and that button. Like when I do usability testing, I will say, we're going to record this session. Any mistake, anytime you feel confused, it's always my fault. It's never your fault. And precisely when you're confused is when I'm going to really dig in to try to understand what's going through your mind. At the end of the session, which might be as short a session as 20 minutes, I'll stop the tape and then I'll answer all your questions. But during the 20 minutes or whatever the time is, I'm just going to keep asking what you're thinking. I'm not going to show you how to use the product. I want you to figure it out on your own. And I learned that technique from someone early in my career at Intuit when I had created an e-commerce company I sold to Intuit, and I learned usability testing from them, and I've carried that through my career.
Great. I love that. Don't lead the witness. Like that's so true. All right, let's move on to Lola Travel because there's a Lola dating that we're going to talk about soon too. But there's Lola Travel, uh, which is one of these domains that you wanted and you eventually did go and purchase. And that, if my memory is correct, Kayak could have been called Lola, right? Wasn't that
And the
originally?
first choice for Kayak, we incorporated as Travel Search Company Inc. We knew we wanted a branded name. We hired a top brand agency in New York, led by a woman named Carol Costello. We went through, what do you want, what emotions you want to evoke when people hear the name, and what brands you like, what names you like, why. And they came up with dozens of names. We narrowed it down to five. The number one choice was Lola. We tried to buy it. We couldn't afford the name. Our run number two was Kayak. We bought that for $30,000 back in 2004. And just for trivia reasons, third was cake, because who doesn't like cake? Fourth was rice, because it's ubiquitous and global. And fifth was probably a terrible idea, was hive, because we thought like a buzz of activity, but we
Hmm.
weren't really thinking about bee stings. And those are the five names. And after we sold Kayak and I created another company, I said, okay, I've really been in love with this name Lola for 10 years. I'm just going to go buy it. It cost me a lot of money and I bought it. And Lola was an interesting story, Lola Travel. We hired Mike Volpe as our CEO when we were a year or two old. And we basically built software where we could go to CFOs and say, we will reduce the cost of your travel and give your users a better experience in shopping for travel than Concur or any other corporate travel site. 2019 was a phenomenal year for us. We had really rapid growth, and we had visions of huge exit, really big company. And then 2020, our revenue went exactly to zero because of COVID. So we did a hard pivot, and instead of selling CFOs travel services, we went back to all of our CFOs and said, okay, we know your company's not traveling right now, but we can also reduce credit card expense for your employees. And we issued our own credit cards. We had real-time controls, so the CFO, the department manager could say, these cards be used for up to this amount for these types of things, not these types of things. And they loved that control. We ended up selling the company to Capital One. Capital One, interestingly, used the technology and the team. They didn't have a need for the name because they want to call their products Capital One. So I bought the name, and now I'm using it for dating app. And now we're repurposing it. We're saying Lola. We used to say Lola was longitude, latitude, Lola. Now we're saying it stands for love language, Lola.
That's awesome. All right. Well, the key thing with Lola Travel is, so didn't it originally start out as more of a consumer, chat-based mobile app?
It started doing chat with real agents. And
Mhm.
the thing that took me a year to understand, and I feel bad that it took me a year to figure this out, is most of our users were business users. And the reason we figured that out was business users, if, if like I was in Italy last week on vacation, if my flight was late, fine. So I'm going to eat less pasta on day one. If I have a business meeting in Chicago, my flight is late 2 hours, I might miss the entire business meeting. So business people have like travel is mission critical. They want a human on the other end of the phone, the other end of the chat who can help them. So we built that at first, first for the consumers. And then a year in, we said, let's just focus on the business users.
Now, you talked about at Kayak, you worked with three designers, an engineering team. So same with Lola Travel. Like, how do you view your partnership with user experience design and engineering as relates to, being the visionary and core function of the product?
First of all, I would never call myself a visionary. I hate when people call themselves visionaries. Um, I think as far as my role as product leader, the most important thing to me was the design and then the performance. So I spent a lot of time on those two things, sat next to the designer, work with him on designs every day, um, and did a lot to monitor the performance of the app, performance of the website. I think that as a product leader, you need to think about what parts of doing product excite you the most. Like being a product leader, it's really like a general contractor building a condo building. You have to have like 20 different trades that you do to be a good product leader. But you need to think about, like, take inventory about which parts of being a product leader make you most happy, like which things put you in the zone where you're sort of in flow and you lose track of time when you're doing those types of activities. And for me, it was UI and performance. And so what I would do is I would delegate other stuff to other product managers on my team, but those two things I hung on to. And it's what I have the most fun working on. And it worked really well. We built a really great product.
Now, the pivot, like what advice would you have on the pivot? Because some entrepreneurs may stay down the path too long and it ends up not working out for the company and they go belly up. Like, so what advice would you have on making that pivot?
I mean, in our case, situation was dire because 2019 was great. We had raised a Series B. We had $20 million in the bank. We did a big financing because things were going so well. But then when our revenue went to zero and every single one of our customers stopped traveling when COVID happened, we said, we're fucked and we don't know when travel's coming back. We can't sit around waiting. We have to pay all these salaries. So we tried to figure out what else could we sell to these CFOs. We had great relationships with all these CFOs selling travel to. And through talking to them, we came up with this idea about managing their expense. And we did a really hard pivot. And I think it was maybe March 10, 2020, we shut the office. I think within 3 weeks, we had designs of an expense product, and we had first product probably 2 months after that. The
So
first product was very simple. It wasn't a
Mhm.
complete product at all, but with something demonstrable to customers in 2 months.
And like building you have a history of building different types of products, obviously consumer, but building B2B software is different. So what would like the biggest differences of as it relates to, product management?
The trick I learned about B2B, I learned it in Intuit. I was VP technology for small business at Intuit, and the biggest product was QuickBooks. We had a 90% market share for accounting and bookkeeping for small business. And the trick I learned from Scott Cook, the founder of Intuit, was just pretend these business owners are consumers because they're very busy running their business. They all hate bookkeeping, they hate accounting. We have to make it work the way they work. So before QuickBooks, small business owners would write checks, they'd send out invoices, they'd collect checks, everything was paper based. And so what QuickBooks did is they just replicated paper and just did it online. So it looked like an invoice we were filling out. It looked like a check you were writing or a check you were depositing because we wanted to think the way the business owner thinked. And the more we could dumb down the software and make QuickBooks just like ridiculously simple, that's when it took off. And a lot of professionals made fun of QuickBooks and said, this is garbage because it allows you to invoice a product which is not in your inventory to a customer which is not in your customer list. But that's the way small business owners work. They don't set of accounts and chart of accounts, all that up ahead of time. They'll do stuff dynamically, and QuickBooks needed to work that way. So QuickBooks was set up to work just incredibly simplistic, like the way small business owners thought. And that taught me a lot about building business software. I had some great mentors at Intuit. Craig Carlson was my boss. Hugh Malazzi was a mentor on my team, and Scott Cook. I learned a lot from them.
And the company that they acquired, it was Boston Light
Yeah, and our
Software.
product called Q Shop. We built e-commerce storefronts, and when we were bought by Intuit, we realized I then learned that okay, so 70% of small business in the US is service based, not product based. So then we said, okay, instead of selling products on the website, we'll do electronic invoicing and credit card processing. So we turned our software into credit card software, and instead of printing out invoices, which QuickBooks customers used to do, they then started sending them by email using our software, and that became a very big business for Intuit.
Yeah, I mean, think about what Shopify and Stripe do now, that like
Yeah.
that.
I'll tell you my biggest screw up at Intuit. Um, we became an ICANN approved domain registrar, and we wrote a Perl script. Back then it was in Perl. Today I'd do it in Python to take 4 pieces of data about all 6 million small business customers. We took the name of the business, the name of the owner, the town they were in, the type of business, like construction. With those 4 words and synonyms, we generated a 2word.com like 95% of our customers that was available. I went to Scott Cook and I said, can you give me $36 million because I want to buy these 6 million domain names. Back then it cost us $6 a piece because we were approved registrar. And I could not convince them to give me the money. Just think how many tens of billions of dollars that'd be worth if Intuit owned the domain name for every customer it had and did everything for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
So
be.
that was my biggest failure at Intuit, is convincing the leadership team to give me the money to do that.
All right, well, let's talk about Boston Venture Studio. So you already gave a glimpse of how you're going, building teams to build products, but let's talk about like what is it and some of the products under the umbrella.
So, yeah, so I have half a dozen employees in the US. I think there's 4 or 5 in Boston and two or one or two in New York. One of them works for one of our companies. We have 6 products. A couple of things we built just because we had an itch to scratch. It was something, a problem we ran into. We didn't find tech for us. We just built it and published it with source code and give it away for free just for fun. We like sort of flaunting our design skills, and we can build product really quickly. But we have 5, I'd say, that are real businesses. The 2 biggest ones are Deets, like Show Me the Deets. It's a travel site for influencers. If you go to my page, deets.com/Paul, you'll see my guide to travel to my favorite cities. And what we do is we take influencers who have a lot of followers on TikTok and Instagram and say, when people are ready to buy, click your profile, go to deets.com/Keith, and they'll see your recommended itineraries and they can buy, and we then give you commission on their sales. That's Deets. Lola is the dating app. We have about 5,000 accounts in Boston right now. We're opening it up in the next 2 weeks to start doing live matching. 2 things different about Lola from any other dating app. One is you pick the night you want to go out. Let's say I want to go out Thursday. We only show you people who want to go out on Thursday. The second thing we do at the end of the date, we'll say, did you go out with Melissa last night? Do you want to see her again? Which of these positive and negative attributes do you associate with the date? You go click, click, click from a predefined list. After you've been on 5 dates, we say, do you want to see what the last 5 people said about you? We don't show you who said what, but we'll basically say people said you were witty, charming, polite, but you talked on your phone too much and you talked about your ex too much. We'll give people real feedback so you can become better and better daters. So that's Lola. We have a few other
But
companies as
but
well.
but a problem that you discovered or was people would just be chatting on these dating apps would never actually go out. Was that the
Yeah, so the premise for us is we surveyed 200 online dating users, and they said the 2 biggest problems were too much work, too much chatting and ghosting, and just it takes forever to meet someone. So we fix that, but you pick the night. We show you people want to go out that night. And the second problem is they'd meet people and they seem okay online. They didn't meet them in person, and big disappointment, like catfishing, old photos, or just someone who's rude. And we're going to fix that by the rating system and coaching people. So that's how we're going to try to fix those two problems.
Got it. Okay. So what are the other products?
I'll give you two more. One is a brand new product called Party Click. It's partyclick.com. If you're throwing a party for like, 10 or 20 people or 100 people or whatever, it's the by far easiest way to create an invitation in 30 seconds. Go to partyclick.com. You pick the theme, the design. You can upload a graphic. I pick one from our studio. And then we create a special URL for you, partyclick.com/13582. You just send that to the 20 people by email or text. They then register an RSVP. You see who's coming. And then that works today. It's working well. It's growing virally in its own because people who use it invite 20 people. Those people like it. Now they're starting to run parties. There's a major new feature coming out in 2 weeks, which you'll think will make it a much more exciting app than just the RSVP. And it's around photos, and you'll see that on partyclick.com in a couple of weeks. The next one I'll mention is, and this is the first time I'm mentioning this in public, is we're building a Calendly competitor. We're solving the group meeting problem. There's literally no solution on the market that allows you to set up a meeting with, let's say, 5 people, unless they're all in your company. You can see their calendars. But if you're trying to set up a meeting with 5 people outside your company, you can't do it with Calendly. You can't do it with Google Calendar plugins. There's no way to do it. You can't do it with Exchange Server and Outlook. So we have a product called SuperCal. It's supercal.com. And all you do is you send a SuperCal invite out to 5 people. They then connect their calendars. We look at all 5 calendars. We pick the best time. And it's literally the only product on the market that can do this. No one else does this.
Isn't it just shocking how difficult like the calendar problem is and how many companies have tried to solve it, yet it's still things like you're solving exist. Like, it's just
Yeah,
shocking.
it's a great product. I could not live without it. It's been live for just about a month now. It's a brand new product, and we have new versions coming out. We do one or two releases a week, so it's changing rapidly. But even as it exists today in its very infancy, I couldn't live without it. There's no other way I can schedule meetings with 5 people. I mean, you say, how about Monday at 11? How about Tuesday at 2? How about Friday at 9? And just this ridiculous emails go back and forth. It's just impossible. But SuperCal fixes that.
So you talked about your team, you talked about these different products that you're building. How do you decide like what to build? Like this kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation. So, at what point is BVS going to take on this project? And then how do you like assign a team to tackle that?
So first thing we do is we pitch an idea across the BVS team, and I see if other people on the team are excited about the idea. Do they want to help us work on it? Do they want to do market research, competitive analysis, interview users? And so then if people are excited enough to participate in the research and definition, we then start talking to customers. We look at competitors and we try to say, can we solve this better than how people are solving this problem today? If there's enough excitement and the research shows that there's a really big, big need, there's no great solution to it, and we don't get something better, then we build a product.
And then how do you go about customer acquisition and scaling? And like in the dating sector, it's obviously very competitive.
Yeah, so we'll buy ads online, on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google. Ads are expensive these days, online advertising, but you have to spend the money to get the initial users, and then hopefully you catch lightning in a bottle, and those initial users get you more users. We're all looking for this positive K factor, right? Like buy 100 users, and those 100 will get you your next 100.
So what are any, I know kind of in the early stages of building out some of these companies and products, but any lessons learned so far of what you've recognized?
Lola's still early, so I can't comment on that. We just have 5,000 accounts right now, but once we start matching, we're hoping that'll start growing on its own. Deets, all our traffic's coming from our influencers. We have several influencers with like 1 million followers, and they're sending a lot of traffic to us. So that's working out really well. We're now just trying to get as many influencers as possible onto the platform. And then the last two products I just mentioned, SuperCal and PartyClick, those are growing on its own. We're not spending any money at all. It's like someone invites you to a meeting, you say, whoa, that was really cool. then you're like, I'm going to try that with my next meeting. So SuperCal is going on its own and PartyClick's going on its own. They're similar products in some ways, like coordinating an event, but PartyClick is consumer and SuperCal is B2B.
So one of the questions that we got is SuperCal, like how are you protecting people's data? Like there's access to calendars and there's a lot of data flow between multiple parties. So how is that protection layer
What we
built
do
in?
is there's 5 people. So a lot of companies will say, if it's one-on-one like Calendly, they'll show you, here's my opening slots this week. So it's exposing you some information about our calendar. SuperCal is more private than that. We don't even show anyone your open slots. We just say, connect your calendar to us. We'll never share it with anyone. And if people connect the calendar to us, we will find the common slot and we will book it.
Which, so that's automated. That's even better.
Yeah.
You know what? That kind of removes some of the uncomfortableness. I think people are starting to it's not a thing anymore, but I think for a while people were just uncomfortable. Like, here's my calendar, pick a date, and you're like, oh, now it's my job to look at your calendar and pick the date, right? It's just it's almost like a power trip. So,
Yeah, and
um,
the first time you use SuperCal, you have to connect your calendar. So you got to
mhm.
connect, authorize Google. Right now it's Google. We're adding Microsoft as well, but you have to connect your calendar. Once you've done that, for the next 100 times you use it, it's just like one click. It's magical. Use it once. So you have to go through a couple screens to connect your calendar. We've all done it, so it's not like totally foreign to us. But once
Mhm.
you've done that, it then becomes really magical for all the other meetings.
So you on your website, Boston Venture Studio website, you offer a place for feedback. So do you find that as an effective way to I mean, it's easy to do, but are you
We
actually
don't get
find
a
that
lot.
useful?
So the website is bvs.net. We don't get a lot from that. I answer all
Mhm.
those emails. It's just hello@bvs.net is our email. So if any of your listeners want to email me, they can just email hello@bvs.net and I'll reply. We get most of our feedback in the app. So we want to make sure that, and all our feedbacks are hello at. So hello@supercal.com, hello@partyclick.com, hello@lola.com, hello@deets.com. And all the team reads all the feedback and we answer every email we get.
Yeah, okay. All right. You talked about AI towards the beginning of our conversation. It's like the analogy I heard, which kind of resonated with me. It's like, it's like water, right? When things became mobile with the iPhone and Android, people had to figure out their mobile strategy. But now mobile is just synonymous with a product, right? That's not like a thought of what are we going to do mobile now. Same with AI, right? So what are your thoughts as it relates to AI and how to apply it to products?
Yeah, I'm doing a couple things with AI. I just gave a big gift to my alma mater, UMass Boston, to set up an institute for applied AI where we're teaching every student at that school how to use AI for 2 purposes. One, how to be a better student, which means personalized learning. And the second one is how to be better at your career. So even like nursing students, it's a school of nursing, we teach them how to be better nurses by using AI. So I'm spending some of my time at UMass helping them AI go across the entire campus, not just AI is not just for computer science, it's for everyone. So we're doing that. And then at BVS, we're using AI to build all our products, to do competitive analysis, to write ads for us, to write emails for us sometimes, although I kind of like writing emails myself. We actually just hired a copywriter part-time, this really clever guy who does better than AI. So I still think humans can write better than AI if you find the right human. So we have a human helping us write our emails right now, and he's just witty and great. Um, but we use AI, we use Copilot to help write the code, and each of our products use AI in different ways. So um, Lola, the dating app, uses ML to do matching. SuperCal uses AI to figure out of the open slots, which one do you pick? Because there's a lot of open slots available. And we have to think about what people are in multiple time zones. Also, if there's a conflict, let's say 5 people are trying to meet in the next week and there's no open slot, which slots do you overwrite? Like maybe there's 5 of us, and maybe Keith, you and I have a one-on-one Friday at 10. Turns out Friday at 10 is the only time these 5 people can meet. Because it's you and I have a one-on-one, it'll go, let's just reschedule the one-on-one. So we'll use that slot for the 5 people, and it'll automatically reschedule the one-on-one. So we're doing things like that. If you have a yoga appointment Tuesday morning, would rather move that than move your doctor's appointment. So we're trying to really smart about looking at all the open slots and picking which is the best one. So we use AI to build our products and market it, and we use AI in our products as well. But I don't really, in general, I don't really like calling companies an AI company. I think AI is just part of the what it takes to build a product these days. So I don't think, we're going to be talking too much about AI. We just happen to use it.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. And then again, it's similar like mobile. But so if you're a part of the product team and the maybe the board is talking to the executive team that's then talking to product, like what is our AI strategy? Like, so what advice would you have for like it needs to be authentic too. There needs to be an actual use case versus just trying to like I saw something on LinkedIn the other day where it was just like it was like making a sandwich, throwing AI like mustard and sauces on top of like meat. It was funny. It was a good analogy. So, like, how do you communicate and effectively push back when maybe we don't need, that solution? It's
Yeah.
not a solution for the problem.
Not all products need AI. Dietz, my travel guide, uses AI to generate personalized guides, but we don't really talk about it in terms of AI. I think just make sure your team is very literate in AI, not just your programmers, but make sure everyone is using AI. You can basically ask ChatGPT, teach me how to write a marketing plan, or teach me how to do competitive analysis, and it will teach you what prompts to use. So make sure everyone is using it. You should. So I have a all hands meeting once a week at a minimum. We're virtual. We have no office, so we have an all hands Zoom meeting, and then we meet in person for lunch. We'll rent a conference room, meet for a day about once a week. And with each meeting, we have different team members flaunt different toys they built in AI to open our eyes, or not just tools that we built, but different things that are on the web that we found that inspire us. Like, I don't know how many of your listeners have seen the rock, paper, scissors video that came out today about OpenAI. It is shocking. It's 2 people sitting in front of their iPhone talking to ChatGPT, where the latest version is looking at their video and saying, and you just listen to the quality of the voice synthesis that ChatGPT can do right now is astonishing. It has humor, it has delays, it has modulation, cadence. It really sounds like a human now. It's freaky, freaky, freaky. And it looks at them on video playing rock, paper, scissors, and it tells which one's the winner. It's just like it's a human in the room. Really, the release that happened yesterday is another step function that AI is becoming more and more human. We've all been watching sci-fi movies for the last 20 years and reading books telling us about humanoid robots. It's happening. I mean, Tesla's spending billions building Optimus, which is their robot. There'll be a lot of other ones out there. Initially, it'll probably be the price of a small car, but that price will come down and down and down. But when you look at what happened to OpenAI yesterday with this new release, I now see how these robots are going to be powered. They're all going to have cameras. They're going to talk with voice modulation and varied cadence and intonation. They'll be able to pick up on your sarcasm. They'll pick up on your mood. Like it's just amazing what's happening week to week.
It's yeah, I mean the pace of how quickly things are developing just seems there's like it's just like one of those, when you first saw the iPhone, you're like, okay, that's gonna change the world. And then when you first saw Chat GPT and ran a prompt, you were just like, what is going on? This is insane. And how
Yeah.
quickly from that moment of, a year and a half or however long it's been since it was first commercially announced, is crazy. Um, Question, Paul, how do you feel about AI to digitize or to teach AI unique expert knowledge into products?
In 2 products.
Yeah, into products. So
Oh, how do you?
using AI to digitize unique expert knowledge into products.
I'm all for it. I mean, the smarter you can make your product, the better it is for the end user. So if my products can have expert knowledge, I'm just trying to think of an example. I was a judge at the MIT 100K competition last night, and there were some pretty interesting med tech companies. If you can build med tech where the software can diagnose the patient and tell you what to do. It might sound scary to cut the human doctor out of the equation, but the reality is there are not enough doctors. I made a doctor's appointment today for something minor, and the first appointment I could get was November for this specialist. It's insane. If
Yeah.
AI could be my doctor right now, I would pay all day for that. I don't want to wait till November to meet this specialist. I'd like to talk to an AI specialist right now.
All right. We talked about hiring a little bit already, but specific to product management, when you look to hire great product managers, like what are the key qualifications that you're looking for during that interview process?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. Okay, this is something I don't think I've talked about this. I talk about my hiring all the time. If you go to my website, paulenglish.com, there's an article there about hiring. I think it's paulenglish.com/hiring.html, which I wrote a long time ago, but I still believe in strongly. I've never actually, I don't think I've talked publicly about how I interview PMs, but because you're Keith Klein, I'm going to tell you my secret. So your audience can hear this. When I interview product managers, product leaders, the first thing I do is I say, what product do you enjoy using most on your phone? And they might say Instagram or TikTok.
Hmm.
I'll say, great, you're now VP of product for TikTok and you have to build the next release. I know you like TikTok. You told me you love it. Tell me three things you hate about it. I need to make sure that product people can have a critical eye. They can tell me things they don't like about their favorite product, and then we can ideate about how to fix those problems. And I'll do it product after product after product. So it's not unusual in an hour session to talk about 5 products. I like talking about Gmail because everyone uses it and it's an important part of our work lives. I like talking about Slack for people who use that. And I want to make sure these product people have insight about Gmail's great except for these 3 things. Slack is great except for these 3 things. So I want to see if they can ideate, if they have a critical eye.
So it's more like a brainstorming session, a back and forth to see how
Yeah.
the person thinks.
Yeah.
Got it. And then if people haven't ever learned about your 7-day rule, what is that?
So I'm pretty hardcore about speed in the hiring process. I like to, from the first day I hear someone's name, let's say I'm looking for CMO, and Keith, you say, "Oh, I know this woman who used to work at PillPack, and she was head of product there, and she's really great consumer chops." As soon as you mention her name, the clock starts ticking. I have 7 days to sort of hunt her down, convince her to meet me at a Starbucks near her. If that goes well, convince her to come and meet my engineers, uh, and do some background checks on her. There's a particular way that I do that. And I have 7 days from when you tell me her name to when I get her to accept an offer, which sounds insane. Like, I'm going to make mistakes if you go that fast. It actually energizes candidates because they go through an interview process at Google, which takes 3 or 4 weeks. They go interview with my company, it takes 1 week. They tend to love how fast we are getting back to them. As far as making mistakes, which is a common question I get asked when I tell people I do it in 7 days, if you're a formula of, if you're a fan of Formula One racing, and you watch the pit crews, those guys are unbelievably good at their job. If they make a mistake, someone dies. So they tend to be really good. They're very, very process oriented. So I tend to be very process oriented about hiring, about how it happens. We train people how to interview. We have a very specific way we make the decision. And if you have a process and you're good at running it and training people, you can run fast and run accurate at the same time.
So if you have you're running a process and you have different people interviewing the person, like what are the different roles that each person's playing? Like, you're doing the
Yep.
brainstorming session.
Yep.
What are the other people doing?
It's really important to write that down ahead of time. In addition to job description, who's going to do what in the interview process. I believe in peer interviewing, 2 people interviewing one person, because it gives that one person the visibility into the dynamic of they get to meet 2 people at the company at the same time. How do they interact with each other? Do they interrupt each other? Do they finish each other's sentence? Do they enjoy each other? So it gives the candidate a chance to see the company in action. And it allows the more experienced interviewer to train the less experienced interviewer. Um, but all that's decided. And the other thing is I give everyone that I put on the interview list, I give them veto power. Because why would I waste their time for an hour if I don't give them veto power? So I'd rather lose a good person than hire a bad person. because hiring a bad person that's toxic, it could be only one person on your team detected it. I've had several times in my career, I always have my candidates meet my assistant. And sometimes the candidates let their guard down when meeting my assistant. They think they're meeting quote unquote just my assistant. And they tend not to be on their A game. And stuff comes out. And so several times in my career, the team has been thumbs up. My assistant will say, there's something bad about this candidate. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something bad here. I reject the candidate because if they're not nice to my assistant, I don't want them on my team.
Mhm. I don't know why this stuck with me, but like years and years and years ago, it might have even like it was a Boston Globe article. It might have been Scott Kirzner. I can't remember, but he was getting these tips from executive recruiters, and I think it was Jeff Leopold. All of a sudden, it's all coming back to me. But anyways, he said, I have like typically interviews were in a conference room. A lot of them are over Zoom now, but he had a like a glass of water test. So, oh, do you want a glass of water? I'm like, sure, that'd be great. So at the end of the interview, what did they do? Did they pick up the glass of water and then,
That's a good one.
try to take care of it, or they expect you to take care of it? Like, so it
Good
was
one.
just like a
Yeah.
sign. Yeah, it was that
The
was a good
other,
one. So
the other thing I do is if it's a really serious position, like you're hiring a CEO, I definitely want to have dinner with them. And I love watching how they interact with waiters.
yeah, that's a good one. All right, so a lot of people are in the market looking for jobs. How do you stand out as a PM? Like we talked about what you're looking for, but how do they even like get your attention and stand out if they're in the job market, not just for, your studio, but for any product job that's out there?
My advice to PMs is write a lot. So you're the way I value PMs is, do they write well? Can they communicate well? Do they write great emails that are succinct and compelling? Do they write great Google Docs? Do they write great specs? Do they post on LinkedIn? I think we all are in the public, whether we like it or not. If you're trying to develop your career, I think we all should be out there on LinkedIn posting and engaging. And when you make a post, someone comments on it, comment on their comment, like engage them. And if you're active on social and business social, meaning LinkedIn, um, you can develop a name for yourself and you develop people who can help you land your next gig. So I think work on your writing, be succinct, be fast. At the end of a meeting, get the minutes out as soon as you possibly can. I like seeing like high output from product managers. Then I like them being able to ideate. And then it's just a general thing. I want them to be confident, humble, make fun of themselves, sense of humor, but driven, decisive, not afraid to state unpopular opinions, all that.
Yeah, that's great, great advice. Um, Building your personal brand, I'm going to double down on that. That is super important. Like Paul said, spend time on LinkedIn. There's so many opportunities to just share comments, write your own post. The more engagement you get, the more that you're going to build your personal brand, and that's going to lead to great things and build your network, which is so key. And that's core to what we're doing with this new community offering on VentureFizz too. This is a invite only community of people that are all product managers in the Boston tech scene. This is a narrowly focused lens, but what I've heard from the market is people don't feel connected. They're not learning from others. They don't, the job market's kind of disjointed. So we're bringing that all together into this community. So again, if you're not a member yet, please request an invite by going to venturefizz.com/communities. Paul, this was super amazing. I thank you so much for your time for walking us through this. This was recorded, so we're going to get it out to everyone that attended, and certainly the people that registered that weren't able to attend, they'll be able to check it out. And I always appreciate your time, Paul. Thank you so much.
I think so, Keith. This was really fun. All right. Good luck, everyone.